from investigating him over his valid assets declaration. Somadim Uzoamaka had filed summons against the Attorney General of the Federation and Yakubu Mahmood. The claimant sought, among other things, an order of mandatory injunction directing and compelling INEC chairman to step down pending the investigation and consideration of the various allegations against him by the various law enforcement agencies. Delivering judgment, Justice Hassan found that the declaration of assets by Professor Yakubu was lawful, valid, and in compliance with the law, and that it cannot be investigated by any of the security agencies listed by the claimant. The Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) duly informed the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, of the decision of the Ministry's Office of the Registrar of Trade Unions to reject the 4 years audited reports of the Academic Staff Union of Universities (ASU). ASU had accused the federal government of withholding the 2022 check-off dues of the union, despite initial deductions from source. Confirming the development, the spokesman of the Ministry of Labour and Employment, Olajide Oshodun, said the dues were withheld because of the failure of ASU to submit the reports. ASU had insisted that the report was presented to the government in a letter dated September 22, 2022 and addressed to Ngige. NLC noted that efforts by ASU to submit the reports were truncated by the officials in the ministry. The Military Pensions Board said it has commenced the payment of the old security debarment allowance to eligible military retirees or next of kin of deceased military personnel. Originally, over 90,000 military retirees who retired before 2017 were not eligible for the payment. Minister of Defense Major General Bashir Magashi said the reason for their exclusion was that personnel who retired prior to the signing of the law were not eligible for the allowance. In the last 2 years, affected retired personnel have staged a series of protests demanding payment of the allowance. Rear Admiral Sabari Lawal, chairman of the Military Pensions Board, in a statement today said the payment had begun after an agreement was reached with the retirees. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, Kaduna State Command says its operatives have arrested 1,232 suspects and they've also recovered 15,000 kg of illicit drugs in the state. NDLEA Commander for Kaduna State, Ibrahim Baraje, stated on Thursday that the arrest and seizure were made from January to December 2022. And he said as of the number arrested, 68 were females and 1,163 are males. Baraji said within the period under review, 199 suspects were convicted, while 350 cases are pending, and 683 suspects were counseled, rehabilitated, and reintegrated into the society. He disclosed that 132 illicit drug joints were destroyed and 27 properties connected to drug traffickers were also sealed. The commander reiterated the command's determination in the fight against illicit drugs and its consumption, and that the command had expanded its operational structure in the state to curtail the influx and outflow of drugs. And now to news on the foreign scene. Mourners poured into St. Peter's Square early Thursday for the funeral of Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI to pay their final respect to the German theologian who made history by retiring, and to also attend a rare requiem mass for a dead pontiff presided over by a living one. Bells tolled and the crowd applauded as pallbearers carried Benedict's corpse or Cyprus coffin out of the basilica and rested it before the altar in the piazza as red-robed cardinals looked on. Heads of state and royalty, clergy from around the world, and thousands of faithful flocked to the Vatican despite Benedict's request for simplicity and official efforts to keep their first funeral of a Pope Emeritus in modern terms low-key. Many hailed from Benedict's native Bavaria and donned traditional dress, including bald wool coats, to guard against the morning chill. California Republican Kevin McCarthy has been seen consulting with his aides and holding discussions with other lawmakers on the floor of the House. So far, he has failed to secure the necessary 218 votes after 6 rounds of voting and actually lost by an even larger margin after one Republican and the Congressman Mike Waltz says the hubbub in the House is hurting America's reputation around the world.
And I think that's a disservice to those men and women that are overseas depending on us and to the people who elected us. I'm going to vote for Kevin McCarthy as long as he's on the ballot. That is what that's what we committed to do. And I certainly share my colleague's sentiment, Representative Kelly's sentiment, that there is negotiations and then there's holding the rest of us hostage. And 20 don't get to do that to 201.
President Biden told reporters that it's a little embarrassing that the House of Representatives hasn't elected a leader after 3 votes. The Republican-controlled chamber had not chosen its leader.
Why? It's embarrassing for the country. I mean, literally, I think I'm part of the reality that, to be able to have a Congress that can't function is just embarrassing. We're the greatest nation in the world. How can that be? And we've had a lot of trouble with, I'm sorry for the noise, a lot of trouble with the attacks on our institutions already. And it just, that's what worries me more than anything else. What about
Still from the U.S., a federal court in the United States has sentenced former Bolivian Interior Minister Otero Murillo to nearly 6 years behind bars for conspiracy to commit money laundering, the U.S. Department of Justice said in a statement. Murillo pleaded guilty in October to receiving at least $532,000 in bribes from a Florida-based company in exchange for helping it secure a lucrative tear gas contract with Bolivia's defense ministry. He had laundered the money through the U.S. financial system. According to the department, Murillo was sentenced to 70 months in prison by the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. Amazon has announced that it will cut more than 18,000 jobs from its workforce, citing the uncertain economy and the fact that the online retail giant had hired rapidly during the pandemic. CEO Andy Jassy, in a statement to his staff, said that the company's leadership was deeply aware that these role eliminations are difficult for people, and they do not take the decisions lightly. He added that they are working to support those who were affected and are providing packages that include a separation payment, a transitional health insurance benefit, and external job placement support. Some of the layoffs would be in Europe, Jassy said, adding that the impacted workers would be informed starting January 18. And to Denmark. Denmark has recorded its first year without bank robberies, as the use of cold hard cash has dwindled in recent years. That's according to the Finance Workers Union. The increasingly cashless society has led banks to dial down their cash services. The union said in a statement on Monday, leaving little potential loot for robbers. The union said that there had been 221 bank robberies in 2000, which had slowly decreased to less than 10 a year since 2017. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the abandonment of cash, said the bank. And now to news in the world of sports. The Golden State Warriors are hopeful that reigning NBA Finals MVP Stephen Curry can return next Friday ahead of their 6-game road trip. Curry has been sidelined since suffering a left shoulder subluxation on December 14 against the Indiana Pacers. Warriors general manager Bob Myers revealed Curry was scheduled to be re-evaluated by medical staff on Saturday, which could pave the way for a playing return soon. Curry's return ahead of their 6-game road trip would be a boost for the Warriors, who have the worst road record in the NBA at 3-16. And finally, Crystal Palace goalkeeper Jack Butland is set to undergo medicals ahead of a loan move to Manchester United. According to reports, the goalkeeper will have a medical at United's Iron training facility at Carrington on Thursday as he gets set to complete a loan deal from Crystal Palace that will last until the end of the season. Butland is expected to act as deputy to David De Gea, with Tom Heaton the third choice keeper. Previous loanee backup Martin Dubravka was called by Newcastle United this week. And that was Citizen FM News at 6 p.m. as edited by Rayo Omotosho. But before we go, a look at our top stories. NLC says federal government rejected ASA report. NDLEA arrests 1,232 suspects in Kaduna State. We also told you that Amazon is set to cut more than 18,000 jobs, according to the CEO. And from the world of sports, Jack Butland is set to undergo Man United medicals. To listen to us online, please visit citizenfm.ng. I am Didi, and to stay with us. Super Citizen at Sunset continues in a bit.
Hello, Abuja. You are listening to 93.7 Citizen FM, the latest radio station based